You've been called lazy. You've been labeled unmotivated, undisciplined, careless. Maybe you've believed it. Maybe it's become the way you explain yourself. You sleep too much. You can't focus. You abandon your goals. You procrastinate until the last moment, or avoid starting altogether. And the world has plenty of names for this: procrastinator, underachiever, failure. But what if none of that is true? What if laziness is not the root of your struggle, but the mask that hides it? Carl Jung didn't see behavior at the surface. He looked beneath it, beneath the symptom, beneath the label, beneath the part of you that the world sees, to the part of you that even you have forgotten how to see. He would ask not, "Why are you so lazy?" but, "What made effort feel unsafe?"
Because in Jung's view, the psyche is not simply rational. It is layered, wounded, adaptive. And every so-called malfunction, avoidance, fatigue, sabotage, is the language of a deeper truth. If you cannot act, it is not because you're broken. It may be because you were forced to function when you were already in pain. And now your psyche resists, not because it's weak, but because it remembers. It remembers the time you tried your best and were still criticized. It remembers when you showed up in vulnerability and were mocked or ignored. It remembers the weight of expectation that crushed your joy. It remembers the guilt of resting when others needed you, or the shame of failing when your survival depended on success. You call it laziness, but your nervous system calls it self-protection. You were not born apathetic. You were born curious, alive, reaching. But slowly, that reach was met with absence, with harshness, with impossibility. And the body remembers. What you call lack of motivation may be grief. What you call disinterest may be a fear of hope. What you call failure may be a nervous system too dysregulated to function in a world that never gave it safety. Jung believed that the unconscious drives so much of our behavior, especially the parts we don't understand. The dreams, the symptoms, the avoidances, the lazy days when you can't get out of bed, the way you freeze in front of the very things you claim to want. And while others might tell you to try harder, Jung would invite you to listen deeper. He would say, this part of you isn't here to ruin your life, it's here to reveal where your life has already been wounded. The drive to succeed requires a foundation of inner safety. You can't bloom while constantly bracing for punishment. You can't perform while your body is stuck in survival mode. You can't chase growth if every risk feels like a return to trauma. And so you stall, you stop, you numb out. Not because you don't care, but because deep down, your system believes that to move forward is to invite pain. Maybe it was the parent who only praised achievement. Maybe it was the teacher who humiliated you in front of the class. Maybe it was the chronic instability that taught you not to plan, not to dream, not to relax. These stories live in your body, and the part of you that hesitates, that drags its feet, that chooses comfort over ambition, that's the part that is trying to stay alive. You call yourself lazy, but Jung might call it a protective adaptation, a brilliant, if outdated, survival strategy. You weren't lazy, you were surviving. And survival sometimes doesn't look heroic. It looks like silence, like hesitation, like blank stares and unfinished to-do lists. It looks like exhaustion without cause, like forgetting things easily, like finding it hard to care, even when you know you should. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That is trauma. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers in patterns, in cycles, in invisible chains you don't know you're dragging. If you grew up feeling unsafe, emotionally, physically, psychologically, your nervous system adapted. And that adaptation didn't ask for your permission. It simply did what it had to do. You learned to scan for danger in rooms where nothing seemed wrong. You learned to feel guilt for resting. You learned to associate productivity with safety, praise, or even love. But over time, that survival strategy became a prison. You grew up. The threat passed. But the response didn't. And now, when you try to push yourself, to get up, to move forward, to just do the thing, your body slams the brakes. Not because you're lazy, but because some part of you still thinks it's not safe to act. This is the hidden grief of trauma. The way it interrupts your natural desire to grow. You want to build, to create, to connect. That's your nature. But trauma placed a filter over that nature. It told you that action is dangerous, that ambition is arrogant, that visibility is vulnerability. And so, your dreams became whispers. Your drive, a flicker you question instead of trust. The culture doesn't understand this. It tells you to try harder, wake up earlier, eliminate distractions. It glorifies hustle. But no productivity hack can bypass a nervous system still operating in defense mode. And Jung would say, before you fix your behavior, understand your psyche. Your procrastination is not a moral failing. It's a message from the inner child still waiting for safety, still waiting for permission, still waiting to be told. You don't have to earn rest. You don't have to earn love. You are allowed to exist. This is where real healing begins. Not with more discipline, but with more compassion. Because trauma doesn't melt under pressure. It softens under presence. And presence is what you were denied. Presence from adults who were too overwhelmed to see you. Presence in moments when your pain was dismissed. Presence when you needed co-regulation, not criticism. So now you must offer that presence to yourself. When you feel the pull of avoidance, instead of scolding yourself, pause. Ask, what part of me is afraid right now? What would I need to feel safe enough to begin? This is not indulgence. This is responsibility. The responsibility Jung spoke of when he said that each person must become conscious of their unconscious contents. Because what's unconscious doesn't just disappear. It shapes your life silently. It sabotages. It resists. It whispers that you are not capable, not ready, not enough. But you are. You've just been living with echoes of past environments, carrying rules that no longer apply, carrying beliefs that were never yours to begin with. And now, your work is not to fight yourself, it's to unlearn what was never true. Like the belief that love must be earned, or that failure is proof of worthlessness, or that slowing down is laziness. These ideas are not universal truths. They are inherited wounds. Jung called this the collective unconscious, the layer of the psyche shaped by culture, ancestry, and history. You carry not only your personal pain, but the expectations of generations. And some of those expectations are impossible, contradictory, or damaging. Be independent, but also agreeable. Be productive, but also never burn out. Be strong, but never show anger. Be caring, but never have needs of your own. This is the impossible game, and you've been trying to win it while dragging trauma on your back. No wonder you're tired.
And this exhaustion, it's sacred. It's not weakness. It's evidence of your endurance. You've been performing strength without support. You've been functioning without nourishment. You've been walking on emotional sprains and wondering why you're not running. And now, maybe it's time to stop blaming yourself for limping. Maybe it's time to stop calling the wound a weakness. Because here's the quiet truth. Your so-called laziness has been one of the wisest parts of you. The part that refused to keep pushing. The part that whispered, "This way isn't working." The part that knew, if you keep going like this, something essential in you will die. And that whisper, it's a lifeline. What if you followed it? What if instead of punishing the part of you that resists, you got curious about it? What does it know that your conscious mind does not? Maybe it knows that what you call motivation has often been just fear with better branding.
Maybe it knows that your burnout is not from too much work, but too little meaning. Maybe it knows that healing won't come from more striving, but from more truth. Because the truth is, you're not behind. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You are becoming. Becoming someone who no longer abandons themselves to meet impossible standards. Becoming someone who doesn't measure their worth by how quickly they recover. Becoming someone who lets healing take the time it takes. And yes, there is a dark night to this becoming. A season where you feel like nothing is working, where you question everything, where the old ways don't fit, and the new ways haven't revealed themselves. But that's not failure. That's transformation. The caterpillar doesn't look lazy while inside the cocoon. It's dissolving, reconstructing, trusting the process without knowing what the wings will look like. You are allowed to be in that space. You are allowed to not know. You are allowed to rest without shame.
You are allowed to redefine strength. And maybe the new strength looks like this. Saying no when you're overwhelmed. Choosing depth over speed. Letting go of friendships that thrive on your self-betrayal. Refusing to be motivated by fear anymore. Letting yourself grieve the years spent proving yourself to people who never saw the real you. Jung believed that each person has a unique path, an individuation process, where the goal is not to become perfect, but whole. Wholeness means integration. It means allowing all parts of yourself, the driven part and the tired part, the wounded child and the wise adult, the chaos and the calm, to coexist. So today, you can begin, not with a grand gesture, but with a gentle one. Turn toward yourself, not to fix, not to critique, but to listen. And as you listen, you might hear this: you were never lazy, you were hurting, and now you are healing. Let that be enough.